Hi guys, finally today is awesome video because we checking real projects from my real students. And today I'm not gonna check this project before this video, so you're gonna see natural way how I check problems, how I make decisions. We're gonna compete today with Chris lord-alge, at least to be somewhere close to him, right? So it's possible, absolutely.
She fills my bed with gasoline.
Our track. Santa Monica track sounds less muddy. It sounds tighter, so I'm gonna change this mix now. Students mix this song after some famous guy did it. And this is how it sounds. This is famous guy. My students did better, don't you think? You have this harsh upper mid-range and highs. Digital click. So something goes wrong here, why? I mean, it's still pretty the same kind of sound, right? So this gate is not effective. And you keep only parts higher than the threshold. Instead, what I'm looking for, something which is not part of this kick. Nobody cares how it sounds in solo, but my main decision based on the mix. I'm not gonna mess with those frequencies until I engage subwoofer. One of trick I teach my students always, after you do this technique, after you hear these all frequencies with plus 20 decibels. Yes, they're not in phase. After I align it, it will be punchier, more solid, more focused. One of the most kind of unique topics, because on the internet you really don't have any information about that. I measured correlation between these two audio waveforms, and I check fundamental tone of this kick. And bass guitar has this peak around 80, so it's a fundamental tone of a bass. But guys boost the same frequency 80 Hz on a kick. That's why kick and bass conflicting with each other. Main probably purpose why they use limiter is just not to push master plugins too much. This high boost will never be felt like really high boost because of you always kind of compensated with low boost. Fine tuning, if you didn't know that, it's a key in mixing. Because it's not for kind of changing your dynamics actually, it's more about to really kind of glue together everything when vocal doesn't jump out of the mix. A lot of people chasing after kind of what kind of preset of this audio engineer, how exactly you set up your EQ or how exactly you set up your compressor. It's not real audio engineering. Real mixing, real audio engineering is just knowing molecules of process, understanding techniques, philosophy and approaches. And then in real mixing you can get a really top sounding mix only when you really consider. My favorite approach, I boost lows with a pull tag. Do you think fat pull tag will be sounding great on this muffled kick? So that's why you need to learn every bolt of this machine. You know, you shouldn't think just about like presets. Your compressor gonna polish next part instead of kind of allowing transient to go through at least a little bit and then squeezing everything together. Notice how snare punchier with automatic release. In subwoofer it can be an issue if you have stereo field in low frequencies. When I compare reference track and my track, I like my track more. But when I bring the same two tracks to some other studio, and when they have totally different speakers, linear phase equalizer, and I would scoop mid-range a little bit to fix this fatness. That's it. So this is how I would do mastering in this case, to fix some kind of a specific technical problems with this recording, and second EQ just to shape kind of overall tone. So let's do A-B comparison. Notice like 400 sounds darker. Consider that a lot of small rooms or medium bedrooms where people can listen to your music can have standing waves, and all these resonances around frequencies between 100 and 200. So you should really think twice before boosting some frequency around this range. Also, I feel like this time sounds a little bit underwater because students didn't boost right frequency. 150 awful, cut. I'm not gonna be using any saturation plugin because, you know, you exceed in analog 0 and you start to get like more saturation, but you also gonna start to have natural compression. In this case you smooth out, your transients and drums can be not so punchy. I'm gonna be using Softube Console 1 controller. Prospects of a crazy dream, it's easy to So, I'm a professional audio engineer. My name is Andrew Zeleno. I've been working in professional field for 10 years. Now I'm living in Canada, and for the last 5 years I'm a teacher for really unique mixing and music production course. 80% of this course is about mixing and mastering, editing, but also we have music writing, sound design, recording, amplifiers, preamplifiers, microphones, recording techniques, even music writing and arrangement, and post-production, because I'm a professional broadcast engineer, radio producer for many years, working for the biggest company in that region where I'm from. This course is known for my ability to teach and really top quality information and tricks and techniques, great approach, great philosophy of mixing, but the most important is homework checking. Most schools don't allow you to choose your own projects, to work on them. Teachers never check your homeworks, like checking different songs. Usually they prepare some song, they mix it, and then they show you how to do that. And when you start to get into your own projects, you see that you really don't know what to do. You know, you do a lot of mistakes, your tracks still don't sound like reference tracks. And in our case, when I check your homeworks, I do it naturally. I do it in real time. So I never check your projects before the class, and today I'm not gonna check this project before this video. So you're gonna see natural way how I check problems, how I make decisions, how I kind of struggle and fighting with something, but finally I get the best possible results. And I challenge myself even more because I always compare your project with the top sounding song ever, mixed by somebody from top 20 audio engineers. And you're on the safe side because you pay monthly, so you don't have any risk to lose your money. So it's great course, check it out. And on the screen right now you see reviews from my only 1 year of my students. I teach in a couple of languages. It's reviews from English speaking guys. We have many of them from really different countries. I'm even providing free trial class, so you can send me a message. I'm gonna specify nuances. If it works for you, you add me in Skype and you attend one class for free to check how it works. Today I'm gonna show you homework checking part of my course. I decided to choose two guys not from the US, you know, so these two guys are from India. They were great students, they graduated from my course already. I hope they did great song. If there will be some mistakes, we're gonna correct. Today we also gonna compare with the reference track. So they worked on this project together, so let's check it out. The main part, probably this one. Great sound, but wait a second, we're gonna compare it with the reference track. We're gonna compete today with lord-alge, considered like the best mixing engineer probably of all time, or at least on the list of maybe 5. So today we're gonna try to beat lord-alge, at least to be somewhere close to him, right? So it's possible, absolutely. So this is our overhead track. What I hear in every track, I hear instruments, I hear some strings. It was a live session. Musicians played together, that's why you're gonna hear all these spills from instrument to the other microphone. So that's why probably, as you can see, we don't have a room track, because those room microphones can capture guitars and vocals as loud as drums, let's say. So we're gonna hear original room of this recording naturally, going through all tracks. Okay, let's compare how our track sounds to reference track. So the reference track is Santa Monica by Theory of a Deadman, lord-alge's mix, one of the greatest reference tracks because it sounds bright and it sounds tight and clear, but not harsh and not too bright, not too kind of annoying. Using many different monitors, some monitors brighter, some monitors giving you a lot of mid information when it sounds like boxy. A lot of reference tracks don't survive, and this track survived. Now to the left side I have 3 monitors, you see only one, and I also have subwoofer on the floor, but I don't have the subwoofer engaged for this moment. As you can see, my students already mastered track, so we have plugins on the master bus. We can consider it like mastering, right? So it's a compression, as I can see, Kramer tape, we have isotope ozone, and we have limiter L2 from Waves. Main plugins of my personal choice nowadays is Softube Console 1 controller, as you can see over here, or universal audio plugins. I still use Waves, I use FabFilter. My students, as you can see, concentrated on Waves and FabFilter plugins. So this is Santa Monica song with nothing on the master bus. So it's a fully kind of prepared, mastered song.
She fills my bed with gasoline. You think I wouldn't notice?
Our track. Santa Monica.
She fills my bed with gasoline. You think I wouldn't notice?
Our track. Of course, in our track, in that moment, we don't have vocal, but you anyway can kind of feel how it sounds. Volume, dynamics, you can hear stereo field, you can hear depth of a mix, right? So we have layering over here, definitely. In terms of mistakes, I instantly hear, I would say Santa Monica track sounds less muddy. It sounds tighter, it has kind of less low mid-range, basically. So we have a little bit muddy drums. Kick also can be a little bit tightened up a little bit. I'm gonna show you how I can do it. So I'm gonna change this mix now to bring it closer to Santa Monica song. But honestly, it's pretty great job. But at the same time, let me show you the second reference track. It was mixed by somebody famous. I really don't know who was the mixer of this song. Students mixed this song after some famous guy did it. And this is how it sounds. This is famous guy. My students. My students did better, don't you think? In terms of muddiness, let's say our students did a little bit muddier drums, but in terms of clarity and like smoothness and like roundness of our mix, of this mix, is better. It sounds smoother, it's easier to listen to, it sounds more pleasant. Famous guy did a little bit harsh upper mid-range, a little bit flatter depth on the mix. I don't hear in famous guy's mix, I don't feel that depth, you know? Everything just sounds more ambient, you know, like everything like far away from me, from a listener, kind of, and like staying on a flat line. While our students created like more depth, something like really close to me, something like far away from me, so it has like more 3D feel in it. Right, so something like further away, but something like closer to me as well. But actually, I'd say our students could do it even better, you know, to make like absolutely amazing mix when something just like in front of you and something like far away. Just imagine a listener who lives in the world of your sounds. It's just cool when you feel like that music doesn't sound like aside from you, you know, but when you engaged, when you integrated all this sound, when instruments like working around you. But I'd say our students beat this famous guy, because mix of this famous guy, it's like putting a reverb on everything in your mix, you know, to make everything like more further away sounding, you're not so engaged, and you have this harsh upper mid-range and highs. Snare sounds like noisy, you know, like really kind of shimmering highs, like too much of it, while our students did pretty smooth and like nice upper mid-range and top end. Also, I like in their mix contrast, you know, you really kind of can separate instruments from each other, you know, when it's like contrast. Let's quickly check some part with the vocal. Okay, Santa Monica song.
She fills my bed with gasoline. We can't stand still. Wanna break down, we gotta strengthen our will. Hold my hand, let's find higher ground.
And reference track, the same song mixed by famous guy, some famous guy.
So we can't stand still. Wanna break down, we gotta strengthen our will. Hold my hand, let's find higher.
You know, I don't like these kind of noisier parts of vocals and sibilances when all this like prolonged by reverb. You know, it sounds like more shimmering, like noisier room because of that. You know, it sounds cheaper, like a public washroom or something like that, you know, when all these hard walls reflecting too much noise. You know, so it's a little bit cheaper, a little bit flatter, definitely. So our students did not bad job. But still, you know, some parts what we can improve. So let's start with the kick. So kick in. Kick out. notice this kind of clicks, really quiet clicks. Don't forget, by the way, to watch this video using proper monitors or headphones. But anyway, notice this like kind of really quiet clicks. Something goes wrong here, you know, like it's like digital clicks when your waveform like cut. You know, you have like, let's say, raising waveform and suddenly it goes down to infinity. So you have these 90 degrees angles and it sounds like digital click. So something goes wrong here. Why? Let me actually change the part. I can see they try to isolate kick from other drums. This microphone anyway captures sound of a snare or maybe cymbals and whatever, right? So they use wave C1 gate in this case, and probably this is what this track creates this kind of problem, and I don't really feel like they filtered. See, I still hear pretty loud snare. Why? So without gate, I mean, it's still pretty the same kind of sound, right? So this gate is not effective. So this is where our students didn't do too great. So let's improve it. Let's show them how to make it better. So first of all, I hear these little clicks. So for example, this is infinity line. It's a full silence, right? And it's a time scale. Drums have this little click in the beginning, it's higher frequencies, that's why waveform shorter. It's called transient. Then you have main impulse, which is also can be considered like part of a transient. But then you have like more stable tail and then like fade out, right? So this is how drum looks like. Gate dynamic processor working with the threshold. This dotted line is like threshold. Everything lower than the threshold will be filtered. You basically kill all noise and you keep only parts higher than the threshold. So basically on my picture everything here and here will be cut. And drum will be short, no noise, no sound from a snare should be there. So it means they have too low threshold. Right? That's why snare still going through this gate. That's why you hear snare. So snare stays somewhere over here basically. And you also filter those parts in the snare, but some parts of this green waveform still exists. That's why you still hear snare. So their gate is not so effective. Another problem with their gate, when you have this transition between silence to waveform, you should have a little bit of attack. Without attack totally, you're gonna have this clickier part. In some drums, and some gates you still can go with really short attack and it sounds okay, but in our scenario seems like it doesn't work. So let's increase attack a little bit, and in this case we should fix this problem. So attack, as you can see over here, is the lowest, 0.01 millisecond, which is 10 microseconds. So you increase attack. Again, I understand that the shorter attack, the better. So I don't try to make attack too long. I try to keep it really short, but a little bit more smooth in transition. Okay, and to filter the snare, seems like we have no choice, we should bring threshold higher. But in this case, you again start to hear all these clicks, because again you need to increase attack. Right, so it's a conflict of interests. You kind of try to preserve original kick, but at the same time, you cannot filter a snare. If you want to filter a snare, you're not gonna preserve your original kick. Right, for this purpose, I would recommend to change the gate. I have this video on my channel called Revolutionary Mixing Technique or something like that. Check it out. I'm not gonna explain the whole thing now, but main idea is next. When your threshold is fairly high, you're gonna kill all transient, all clicky and punchy part of little bright upper mid-rangey kind of attack of your drum. So what you need to do, you need to trigger your gate earlier. In this song we don't have trigger track, right? So trigger cannot open our gate earlier. So you can use this revolutionary technique or other way, gates with look ahead parameter. Look ahead means your DAW gonna count your audio in advance. Your DAW should have great delay compensation for this process. I'm gonna be using this FabFilter gate. Attack is a little bit too long in this case, I'm gonna have killed punch. It sounds nice, right? At least I hear only the kick. Right now I'm not gonna go into details of all the settings. It sounds normal, sounds not bad. But to have this click back to our signal, I engage look ahead parameter and I set up 10 milliseconds. Unfortunately, this plugin doesn't allow you to go more than 10 milliseconds. And for me, 10 milliseconds can be not enough. Okay, let's check what they do next. So on a kick in, even kick in sounds pretty boxy, you know. As I can see, they cut some frequencies to probably to make this kind of boominess like less existing, but honestly I don't feel like they didn't find proper frequencies for this case. So let me to do that. You boost frequency all the way up, you use pretty narrow bandwidth, you just sweep from lower frequency to higher frequency. What I'm looking for in this case, I'm looking for resonances. You know, I'm not looking for just sounds I don't like. Of course, I'm not gonna like any of these actually settings, because every frequency will be exaggerated by 20 decibels, right? So instead, what I'm looking for, something which is not part of this kick. When I going through this 60 Hz, as you can see, we have like a lot of boom. But the question is if it's a problem of this kick or not. Of course not. You know, it's obvious that it sounds so boomy. I'm looking for artificial frequencies. Kind of roomy tone, around 130. I'm trying to remember some numbers I didn't like. They pretty properly found frequency of boxiness. It's 640, so definitely it's the right choice, but the problem is it's just not effective filter. When you have filter with 10Q, of course you need to lower this frequency too much. If I boost this frequency 640, it's definitely a right choice, because it sounds like, you know, like some artificial additional resonance to the drum. Also, what I found, when I was sweeping through this range, I found the same problem around 500, 550, so it's not just 640. 100 Hz lower, but we still hear this problem. I'm gonna be cutting 600. I choose something in between, but I'm gonna be using wider filter because I want to affect on all this range. And I cut just maybe 3 dB, it will be enough with the wider filter. Actually, it's not enough. in this kick, it seems like better to filter these frequencies a lot, you know? Of course, I want to check in the mix, because nobody cares how it sounds in solo. I tried in solo, just I wanted to figure out what exactly going on in this specific drum. But my main decision based on the mix. See, it's instantly much clearer. It doesn't sound like cardboard box anymore. Actually, it still sounds a little bit. My second frequency, as you remember, I said was 130. Right, so kick sounds much clearer now. Second kick. The same, boxy, really boxy sound. Let's filter it as well. Actually, I don't even care about frequencies lower than 70 in this case, because it's a part of a kick sound. I'm not gonna mess with those frequencies until I engage subwoofer. This time it's 160, really awful, so I cut 160 a little bit. But this is not what I'm looking for, honestly speaking. Honestly, now I'm looking for frequencies around low mid-range and, let's say, mid-range. Sometimes when you don't have trained ears, you don't know exactly what you listen to. On my course, we learn in like really deeply. I believe one of the best topics, I call it masterpiece on my course, it's an EQ topic. During like 12 classes or so, we're covering all little nuances, all known tricks. We have triple approach, we learn chart of parameters, we learn how to listen to, we have like ear training. Now I just don't have too much time in this video just to concentrate on it. One of trick I teach my students always, after you do this technique, after you hear these all frequencies with plus 20 decibels, if you're just gonna bring this point down to normal position, it's instantly gonna be sounding great. without this kind of boost, it already sounds normal, right? So how you can figure out how much to cut if it already sounds much better than it was with plus 20 decibels? You need to give you some time. You need to listen to the whole mix without EQ, and then with clear perspective, you decide how much you cut. So this is reference track.
I'm bed with gasoline. You think I would've known?
You know, in Santa Monica it's still tighter. You know, in our mix it's like still too much bottom end in a kick. Don't forget, when you work on individual tracks, don't forget that you hear like sound together. These two tracks can have phase issues in between, or you're gonna hear, as you can see, guys using over here SSL Channel strip, they can boost wrong frequencies over there, they use a compressor, which also can be wrong setup. First of all, what I want to check if these two tracks cancel each other. Honestly, don't listen to me now, I'm not gonna be explaining how to use at all, I just gonna count it. You should understand, in the purpose of this video, it's just impossible to cover like every little parameter, because video can be like 3 hours, and I need to make it at least, you know, like 30 minutes or 40 minutes maximum. Yes, they're not in phase. These two kick tracks are not in phase. After I align it, it will be punchier, more solid, more focused. So kick out sounded like too late. When two tracks out of phase, it means audio waveform of the first track go up, and waveform of the second track go down. And if these tracks stand in the same position on the panorama, which is center for the kick, right, they start to cancel each other. So you're gonna have like more washed out, more like ruined tone, you know, not so solid. So I corrected phase of the second track and it's okay. On my course we have phase topic with a lot of hints and my own kind of invented tricks. For all of you who gonna attend this course, it will be like one of the most kind of unique topics, because on the internet you really don't have any information about that. What I decided to do, I'm not gonna align phase now for one reason, because I noticed when I align it properly I need to readjust all settings my students done. It's not fair because they mix it in a different way, so I need to keep working on those things what they did, not how I totally redo it, right? Because otherwise how they can learn, you know, if I just kind of start to mix from the scratch. But I'm gonna show you what I mean. You can see over here kick in, kick out, right? Time alignment between them 0 milliseconds and 0 milliseconds. In Cubase over here next to this clock sign you see 0 0. Notice how these two kicks sounding like not fat, right? They sound like filtered, like we're losing low end. Every time when you hear kick sound, it sounds tight. Right, so it's like filtering low end. If I set up 2.5 milliseconds delay for the lower track for the kick out, suddenly you're gonna hear much more bottom end in the kick. So this is how this second kick should be set up. It should be later, because otherwise you combine two waveforms, one waveform go up, other waveform go down, and they cancel each other. Only after I align time for the second kick, you start to have this bottom end. I measured correlation between these two audio waveforms, and only then I understand how much I need and how I should set up. But anyway, I'm gonna be using 0 just because of, you know, still want to go with those settings my student had, because I want to see kind of the whole picture, what they kind of trying to achieve over here. It's a little bit undefined. First of all, as you can see, they boosted 80 Hz. And this is bass guitars, and how they filtered bass guitars, they cut 80 Hz. Okay, let's measure this kick without equalizers. Actually, let's measure this kind of combined kick sound with a frequency meter, not using any plugin over here. For this I'm gonna be using any frequency meter you like. Let's say I can go with, let's say, isotope ozone. I slow down my meter and I check fundamental tone of this kick. As you can see, is this point. I put mouse cursor over here and over here. At the bottom I can see over here the value, right? So this is, it's 58 Hz. So guys didn't find the right frequency for this low boost. That's why they kind of boost in this gap, where bass guitar mostly have this. So this is bass guitar. Now I play bass guitar, right? And bass guitar has this peak around 80, so it's a fundamental tone of a bass. But guys boost the same frequency 80 Hz on a kick. That's why kick and bass conflicting with each other. Right, so we shouldn't boost 80 Hz on a kick. Actually, let's change it. So what I'm gonna be doing on a kick in this case, using SSL EQ, I'm gonna be boosting 60, 56 or 58 or 60 Hz based on our measuring. It's exactly what we need to boost. In this case you have better contrast between kick and the bass, and finally you start to feel like this kick. Otherwise it sounds a little bit muffled. Next thing, this kick doesn't have enough punch. Enough cutting through the mix aspect. So as you can see, they try to boost 5K. But they do it low, you know, and kick because of that doesn't have this kind of cutting feel. I raise this frequency up to plus 8 decibels, as you can see, when it's really starts to kind of to have this kind of punch. But honestly, kick doesn't cut through the mix at all. I can see they use limiter over here. Main probably purpose why they use limiter is just not to push master plugins too much, so they kind of polish transient maximum volume, maximum peaks in this case. But what you should know about L2 limiter doesn't preserve your punch. It's like really nice fat sound in limiter, but if you really want to preserve punch, it's not about that limiter. So in this case I feel like this kick sounds even better without this limiter. You know, I hear this kind of a p, and with the limiter it's just like you know, doesn't have this kind of a solid mids. Too soft, you know, so I get rid of L2. See? So now it has it a little bit of kind of more punch. Other thing what I would do with this kick, I would find proper frequency. How I do it? I do A-B comparison. Instead of 5, I try 3. And I do like 5 against 3. So this is 5. I do it in a mix because honestly, in solo this kick is audible, but in the mix it's not. So what's the point to check it in solo? Let's check it in a mix. Honestly, for me it doesn't sound right, you know, I kind of feel like it's not enough. There is a couple of combinations you can have over here. You know, in terms of equalizers, it's always like this. If you have like high boost and you have low boost, this high boost will never be felt like really high boost because of you always kind of compensated with low boost. So I think maybe it's just a little bit too much for dB for this kick. So I boost a little bit less, maybe 2 dB only to make it tighter. It allows me to hear more upper mid-range. I boost a little bit more highs to make like more present, more open kick, and I still push upper mid-range. Okay, so it seems like proper idea, but honestly you cannot really figure out how it sounds in the final mix until you take a break, until you finish all other instruments. Then you probably need to revisit all your settings from the beginning. It's called fine-tuning. Fine-tuning, if you didn't know that, it's a key in mixing. Because just imagine you start mixing a project, right? Any track in your mix, dark, muddy, muffled, undefined, unclear, no contrast, no definition, and you start to process kick. You find some settings, but it still sounds muffled, because every other instrument is muffled. So that's why you really don't know if it's like finalized settings. So you shouldn't sit too much on a like starting point in mixing. You need to go further and then you can revisit some wrong settings. Feeling really a lot of muddiness in the snare, I want to jump to the snare quickly to figure out what's going on there, and then I can go back to the kick. Also, before I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna check compressor and I'm gonna check master bass. Because in this song I feel like something doesn't allow me to go further. You know, because something like too smoothing out next transients of each kick. Maybe it's a master bus compressor. So they use SSL Master Bus 4000 and they use too long release, 1.2 seconds. You should understand how long tail in compressor works. Let me show you. For example, this is waveform of the finalized song. It's a final song. It's like first part. This part consists like kick sound, bass note, vocal note, hi-hat. The next part, the next part, the next part. So each part it's about some combination of some different instruments. And you have also some kind of a more punchy parts in the beginning and then tails in the end of those parts. Then you put the threshold, like this, and compressor start to compress everything. A main goal of a SSL master bus compressor usually considered like gluing tool. You know, it's not for kind of changing your dynamics actually. It's more about to really kind of glue together everything when vocal doesn't jump out of the mix, you know, when it's just like everything glued together, working together. Release time works like this. A lot of people chasing after kind of, oh my god, what kind of preset of this audio engineer, how exactly you set up your EQ or how exactly you set up your compressor. It's not real audio engineering. Real mixing, real audio engineering is just knowing molecules of process. You know, understanding techniques, philosophy and approaches. And then in real mixing, you can get really top sounding mix only when you really consider nuances. You start to think, okay, what about my transient? How much upper mid-range I already have? And then you only decide how much you need to boost or cut or you don't touch anything. If you just copy somebody's settings and then you apply those kind of shaping tools on your absolutely different sounding instruments comparing to that project where that guy created this preset, you're gonna have totally awful combination. Sometimes your bass have, like over here, right? We have, let's say, too much bottom end in the kick. It's really that sounding kick. We need to boost upper mid-range, we need to boost highs. And somebody tells you, my favorite approach, I boost lows with a pull tag by 3 dB, let's say, by 5 dB. Do you think fat pull tag will be sounding great on this muffled kick? Absolutely not. So that's why you need to learn fundamentals. You need to learn every bolt of this machine. You know, you shouldn't think just about like presets. And this is exactly what we do on our course. We go really deep in every detail, in every nuance of audio. So what's the problem with long release? Long release is like diving submarine. You know, so when your compressor starts to compress, how much they compress? Let's check it out. As you can see, they compress by 2 dB. Of course, it will not be so awful in this case, because 2 dB is like forgiving you all these mistakes, but still, you know, your submarine dives by 2 dB down. Maybe 2 dB is not too much on individual track, but on the master bus, on the full song, 2 dB still matters. And this compressor trying to stop working. Before the next part, it would be great to stop working or at least having like just a little bit of compression in the end of this process during first part. Because second part, which is this one, also gonna have this kind of initial transient, which is a punch of a kick or snare or whatever. And guys set up it like 1 second and 200 milliseconds. You know, it's just too long. It means your compressor gonna polish next part instead of kind of allowing transient to go through at least a little bit and then squeezing everything together. This is picture of short release, so compressor will count every part on its own. Even if you polish next part, maybe your release still longer, right? It can be still touching next note like this. How much decibels you compress over here? It can be 0.5. But guys, using 1 second and 200 milliseconds. It means your submarine never tried to go to the surface. It's like all the way down. And next part, and next part, and next part. Compressor works all the time, so it sounds muffled. It doesn't sound open. So what I would do in their case, I would set up master bus compressor with a little bit shorter release. It can be 600, 300, let's compare. Notice how snare punchier with automatic release. It's more breathing, it's more open sound. It sounds more dynamically. You know, music doesn't sound like blah, 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 blah. It sounds like blah, 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 blah. So it goes up and down, up and down. It has some kind of feel to it, you know, it's more interesting to listen to, exciting. You know, we have dynamics topic, one of the coolest topic, and it will be pretty soon to the beginning of a course. Because honestly, I feel myself now like it's just impossible to show you like depth of all this knowledge on all these things we learn just based on this one video. So what I can show you in this one video, right? Pretty nothing. But anyway, let's compare some part when we have vocal, because master bass compressors not so important if it's instrumental track. Master bass compressor first of all important when you have vocal, because vocal is the thing which jumps out of the mix. So this is 1.2.
It's coming so we can't stand still. Wanna break then we gotta strengthen our will. It's coming so we can't stand still.
The only problem with changing this setting, you shouldn't do it in the end of mixing. Again, right, so I should make excuses, but honestly I really should make them, because I cannot change release setting now. Because, you know, it's like gluing tool, you set up it once and you forget about this. And then when you work on individual settings on your tracks, volume, EQ, you need to think about balance. What we experience now when it's 1.2, we have vocal quieter.
It's coming so we can't stand still. Wanna break then we gotta strengthen.
When I change to automatic attack, vocal suddenly starts to be much louder.
It's coming so we can't stand.
Plus we don't have enough compression in this case, because when it's 1.2,
It's coming so we can't stand still. Wanna break.
jumps to like 2 decibels or something like that. When it's automatic release, our arrow pretty don't move, so we just don't have enough amount of compression. In this case I need to readjust threshold, and suddenly we have overall different tone.
Hold my hand. Let's find higher ground.
So again I need to readjust threshold, because it's not fair to compress by 2 dB and then your option like almost nothing or 0.5. It will be a decision between what you like more, 2 dB of compression or 0.5 decibels of compression. So as you can see, I have two ways. First way, not to touch their master bass compressor at all, or I can readjust to automatic release or 300, 600 release. Unfortunately I have to touch threshold knob.
Hold my hand. Let's.
And also, just because of different compressor behavior, you just instantly have a little bit different balance. If I want to go with my settings, right now I need to rebalance the whole mix. I need to make vocal quieter. So to make it quicker, I just give you this suggestion. Try to probably not to use 1.2 seconds on SSL master bass compressor if your song pretty fast. If your song really slow, like ballad, go with 1.2, why not? But for purpose of this video exactly, I'm not gonna touch their master bass compressor. They using stereo imager, so they make only upper, mid-range and highs a little bit wider. It's normal idea, because if you widen low frequencies, you can get like awful phase issues when you use subwoofer, let's say, when you blend in mono everything in lows, like left and right together, right? In subwoofer it can be an issue if you have stereo field in low frequencies. But again, no rules here. Just suggestion. Actually, I'm not a big fan of using this master widening tool. So next we use
It's coming so we can't stand still.
to emulate tape. Without,
It's coming so we can't stand still. Wanna break then we gotta strengthen our will. It's coming so we can't stand.
this plugin, it's a part of muddiness actually. Seems like it's a great idea to use tape because it glues everything together more, plus giving you like more smooth kind of feel for this kind of shimmering highs. Just to be fair, you know, you can think in any logic you want, but when you compare with reference track, notice Santa Monica doesn't sound so muddy, that's it. Much tighter low end, you know, and you have like more open highs. In our mix we have like more like boo boo boo.
It's coming so we can't stand still. Wanna break then we got.
So much fatter bottom end. Over here I need to stop and tell you one important suggestion. When you listen to using right now your monitors or headphones, you can say, you know what, I like this mix more than Santa Monica. In those headphones it just sounds better, because it's fatter. Don't be misled, because honestly I always worked before on pretty relatively bright monitors, and I always kind of try to make everything like fatter. I like more bottom end, I like to boost low end, right? And at some point when I compare reference track and my track, I like my track more. But when I bring the same two tracks to some other studio, and when they have totally different speakers, or just to friends in their cars with some subwoofers, we play these two tracks together and suddenly reference sounds normal, but my track sounds like too boomy, too muffled. It's all about monitoring. That's why we need reference tracks. So you shouldn't kind of say, in this case, oh my god, I like this track more. Instead, what you should say, wait a second, my track like muddier. Who knows, maybe on my monitors it's okay, because it sounds smoother, fatter, darker, cooler. But what if my listener uses something darker sound in headphones, fatter sound in monitors? In this case, your track gonna lose in a battle with this reference track. So that's why we still should scoop those low mids in our track. That's why I say this tape doesn't work for us, because with this tape it sounds fatter. Without this tape plugin, sounds closer to the reference track. I would try to use Master EQ, because I want to get both results together. I want tightness and clarity, but at the same time I like how this tape plugin works. So I would put over there some linear phase equalizer, and I would scoop mid-range a little bit to fix this fatness. That's it. So this is how I would do mastering in this case. This is snare track. They are working over here on resonances over room, maybe it's right, but actually I still doubt if you really need to cut 1.2 on snares, you know. Cutting through kind of aspect if you don't cut 1.2. Spiky, more bitey kind of tone, which we like actually, because in Santa Monica snare sounds like so clean, so cutting through. I cancel this movement, then I go to shaping EQ. You know, we use like two equalizers. One EQ was like to fix some kind of a specific technical problems with this recording, and second EQ just to shape kind of overall tone. SSL channel compressor on my channel. I uploaded video on SSL compressor, or it can be a part of a video called, it says VU meter in the title of this video. If you see it, check it out. In the end of those videos I'm gonna explain these SSL channel compressors. I would suggest to switch gate to fast attack. I mean, I understand gate in your case kind of doesn't work, but don't be fooled, it's a analog device. Sometimes even like tiny little setting on it can change your sound, you know, so it's better not to eat this kind of initial punch of your snare. So set up fast attack on the gate, because slow attack, if somehow it will be engaged on your drum, you know, it will be like killing thing for your drum, it will be less punchy. Second thing, you use 400 milliseconds release on this compressor. It sounds like darker. So let's do A/B comparison. Notice like 400 sounds darker. You know, it's just like more open, more bright, more kind of present. So why not to use this release 100? I really doubt that we need to boost 200 hertz of this snare by 6.5 decibels. You know, seems like it's a little bit too much. So snare sounds just too fat. So I would use maybe 3 dB instead of 6. And now notice how snare doesn't sound boomy in the mix anymore. Only one thing, it sounds quieter. When you don't boost some frequencies that much anymore, your instrument instantly sounds quieter. So you need to compensate with the fader or with output fader of a plugin. So I boost a little bit over here on the output. But honestly, I don't feel like drums sound less muddy. It's absolutely not. So we have some other element which sounds really muddy. And it's definitely tom microphone. Tom sounds like really muffled. Again, it's 11E76 compressor. Notice like tom sounds much more open and like present and clear when it's shortest release, which is 50 milliseconds. It's not too short. So let's use shortest release on the tom. You have some other sounds, not only tom sound. Try to isolate in your brain tom alone, and then consider like tom sounds darker and like more muffled with this release, and tom sounds more open and bright and present with shortest release. right? Much more present. It's like day and night for me. Not sure what you exactly hear, but depending on the experience of my ears and my monitoring system, it's just like day and night. First thing what I don't like about my student's thumb is this boost around 140. Consider that a lot of small rooms or medium bedrooms where people can listen to your music can have standing waves and all these resonances around frequencies between 100 and 200. So you should really think twice before boosting some frequency around this range. So I just by default not gonna boost this frequency. Notice how our drums open up instantly. They sound like more open now. They don't sound so like boo 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 boo. Of course, it's not like finalized version. Of course, you should tweak more. You should find the right balance. Also, I feel like this thumb sounds a little bit underwater because students didn't boost right frequency. They boosted 1K. This drum sounds like underwater because of that. If I do, let's say, higher frequency, feels like if you boost something like 4K or 5K, it's even more open. Probably I'm gonna keep myself away from 5K because when I boost 5K I start to hear all these noisy hi-hats because of this steep curve of a filter still touches a little bit too much frequencies like 7K, 8K, 10K. So the lower frequency, the less I touch highs. Yeah, 3.7 gonna be my sweet spot. But at the same time we did one important cool thing. Drums didn't start to find thin or smaller, you know, like too bright or too noisy, like this reference track, let's say famous mixer did, right? It sounds like, in his case, like too brittle, like more noise. It's like all the time. We still keep our drums smooth and nice like students did, because I really like how they did it. They kept this kind of smoothness of a sound, but we just make it like less boomy, less muddy. We got rid of cardboard box. We should again revisit kick, snare and tom sound to make it more clear, more transparent. $150 awful, cut. Remember, students boosted this frequency, but it sounds just wrong in this case. Do you hear this kind of a humming noise? It's not even a part of a tom. It's something how room resonates. In this case, it sounds like ooh, ooh, ooh. You know, it's not like how tom sounds. It's like scary tom, you know, like ooh, ooh, something like this. So definitely 185 or 200 should be cut. Notice this super boxy little kind of tone around 330. Awful, cut. Of course, there is a couple of ways how you mix. Some audio engineers don't cut frequencies at all. Some audio engineers just boost more highs, you know, like to bias your balance towards high frequencies. You can do it like that as well, but in this case I prefer just to find the frequency. Usually I'm against all these kind of little cuts. For this kind of awful, muddy sounding tom, I kind of have no choice. And a little bit snare, right? Snare still sounds muddy. I want to make it like nice and clear. Let me redo kick at all, you know, so I kind of don't feel it. I'm not gonna be using any saturation plugin because, you know, all the saturation plugins, when they based on analog bus, it's basically like you exceeding analog 0. And you start to get like more saturation, but you also gonna start to have natural compression. In this case, you smooth out, your transients and drums can be not so punchy. I feel like I need this kick cutting through the mix instead of smoothed out sounding, you know. Also, students use 11E76 compressor. I don't like it on this kick, it just really doesn't work, so I get rid of this. I'm gonna be using Softube Console 1 controller, plugin like SSL Channel strip from Waves, but of course with different tone. Don't think every plugin sounds the same. It happens sometimes, but the next part of audio will not be recorded. Screen is okay, everything is okay, just you're gonna hear on camera mic. But it's not a problem, it will last just 5 minutes. Company claims proper headroom will be around drive 5, but people forget it's all about headroom. It depends on how loud our waveform already recorded. But for me, you know, I feel like these kicks can be like too muffled. What exactly happens in the console when you exceed analog 0? You start to get like more saturation and more compressed signal. So you start to lose this kind of a punchy, clear, spiky sounding transients. In our situations in this kick, we actually need to do opposite. We need to emphasize this punch. So I lowered drive a little bit down, not to have too much of it. I want much brighter top end, so I choose 10K and I just... What's the point to boost highs? It's noisy, it emphasizes snare, but it's a kick sound, maybe we don't need it. Main problem with highs in this kick just doesn't sound present. You know, sometimes it's about physics rules. According to physics, you hear more high frequencies when your source closer to you, right? So it can be like closer, and that's why kick can be emphasized in the mix. Just ask yourself, if your friend stays next to you, do you hear high frequencies? Definitely you hear it. But if your friend will be screaming at you from, let's say, on the street from 200 meters away from you, what do you think? You're gonna hear all these kind of high frequencies? No. So this is how we already got used to in our life, living on this planet for many years. You already kind of admit this fact. Like, the less highs you have, the less present this signal is. Honestly, I would prefer to use something like parallel compression or something like that, but for today we just don't have time for it, so I just go with transient master. So I emphasize punch. Too much low mid, you know, so I'm gonna try to find this boxiness. So we definitely have this kind of a boominess around 200, so I cut it a little bit. Mirror frequencies theory. We learned it on my course, but I'm gonna reveal only one part of this theory. When you boost a lot of highs and a lot of upper mid-range, I definitely did kick sounding kind of noticeable, right? So you hear it. Should be playing some specific role, giving you this kind of nice and warm bottom end, but it doesn't give it now. It just sounds like a little tiny click. Right? It's like click, click, but let's bring a little bit more bottom end to it. We already learned before it's a 56 Hz fundamental tone of this kick, so I use this frequency. If you boost low frequencies with shell filters, usually you have like deeper and nicer kind of bottom end. But when you have so fat mix like this one, when you want like more tightness, sometimes it's better to boost this frequency with the bell filter. How I can decide on it exactly? I can use subwoofer. My third monitor, which is combined with subwoofer, I prefer this setup to use it, and I start always with reference track. So I need to get the idea of great amount of bottom end using reference track. And now it sounds really boomy, you know, drums should be like tight and nice. Instead what I hear is like, when kick doesn't sound, it sounds like normal, and kick hits, and it sounds like too loosey, too boomy, like So I want to use bell. Even like 1 decibel more, 1 decibel less with subwoofer, it can give you like really different results. Of course, don't forget, when you align phase, what students didn't do with these two tracks, it allows you to have like more solid kind of tone, then you can filter more. For this kick actually I desire to have a little bit low cut. I kind of believe I need to use low cut, you know, maybe 30 Hz. Combining low boost with low cut, now I can allow myself to boost a little bit more bottom end.
Prospects of a crazy dream, it's easy to...
See, even in this kind of relaxed part, it sounds much nicer, because kick sounds like more tight, more noticeable. But suddenly I recalled our master bus compressor with 1200 milliseconds, and I understand with shorter release on this compressor we can get even like more open, more clean, more punchy, and more like solid sounding drums. So don't forget about master bus compressor, it can kill your mix as well as improve your mix. Just imagine, every homework checking class we have at least 4, sometimes 5, 6 homeworks of this kind. Every mix has nuances. So you see not only your mixes, but mixes from guys from your group, which is amazing because it gives you like 4 or 5 times more experience and more ideas, more situations, not just like random kind of situation of your mix. You know, so it's amazing that we work in groups because of that. Of course, it's 9 months. Every homework check-in, something new appears. Sometimes in mixes you have more problems with instruments, with guitars, with synthesizers. We work on any genre you can imagine. I mean, it doesn't matter for us if it's rock song, you know, if it's metal, or it's hip-hop, or it's EDM track, or classic music, depending on what genre and what music student prefers. Bassline. We have 2 basses. Guys decided to do next. They decided to create so-called frequency crossover. This is what we learned on our course. They forgot only one thing. So they have 1 bass. They copied this bass to 2 tracks. The problem is guys forgot to use the same order of filters. 12 decibels per octave. 6 decibels per octave. In this case you're not gonna have right correct phase. So checking this song with the subwoofer, I suddenly realized this bass doesn't have this kind of a nice and warm harmonics. In Santa Monica song, in the reference track, you hear this bottom end in the bass as well as in the kick. It means our bass just gives you like illusion, like it sounds like really fat and warm. With subwoofer it sounds a little bit weird. I would apply so-called low frequency enhancers. I lowered volume of kick a little bit because with subwoofer it sounds like too much contrast between everything else and the kick. With subwoofer kick just like woo, like too much of it, you know, so I just compensated. I shortened the tail of a kick a little bit and I made it just quieter. I'd say guitars on a boundary, you know, it's pretty spiky already. On a guitar I would lower this 3K boost actually. Instead of +5 I would go maybe +4. I believe it's a matter of a model of equalizer, so I wouldn't go with FabFilter Pro-Q in this case, and I would choose something like more smooth sound in EQ, you know, to polish signal a little bit more. Plus, look what guys decided to do over here, it's amazing. They decided to go with really short attack on a compressor of this guitar. You kind of hit some note and it's just like too kind of bitey. And with really short attack you just smooth out transition from note to note. So with this super bright guitar it really works. So great idea guys. Okay guys, check this out, it's reviews from my students from previous year. Now I have even more students. Take a time, just press a pause and read reviews if you want. We have over here Paul from Australia, we have guys from the US, from the UK, we have student who graduated from Berkeley and he believes my course is better than the best like university, right? But the price for this course like 10 or 20 times cheaper, like this, and then like this, and like this. Guys who did homework, and that homework we check in here is Ram from India, right? And Mandeep Eka. Probably pretty soon I'm gonna collect reviews from my current students, so we're gonna have this file again from other guys and I'm gonna show this. Pretty soon I'm gonna collect reviews from my current students. Considering how much time we spent on this video, probably I cannot allow us to go further. I concentrated in this video specifically on the most important mistakes of this mix, so we fixed it. Send me email if you're interested. Subscribe to the channel, what's going on further in this project. It's pretty valuable hints over here on bass, on vocals. I'm gonna explain how guys using effects, reverb, delays, all that stuff. I can do the second part of this video, so if you're interested, put a comment in the comment section. And don't forget, I can check your many homeworks, and you can see many homeworks from other students in your group during the most full-fat course on mixing, recording, sound design, music writing, post-production, vocal tuning, and every other part of audio engineering on my course. It's really affordable, you pay monthly, it's great theory, and the most important, homework checking when you really see your progress. That's it. See you next time guys, have a nice mixes.